If you're enjoying the content on the channel, make sure you take a moment, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. And today, let's check out Excalibur number 4 by Tini Howard and Marcus Toe. Eric Arciniegas is your color artist, and let's go, guys. Back in issue 3, our team kind of fled from Otherworld without saving Brian Braddock, basically because when he showed up in his Morgan Le Fey controlled form, he handed them their tail. Luckily, Shogoo, who is a dragon in Otherworld, managed to bail everybody out and they escaped. Well, that brings us to Gambit. Rogue is still in her floral vegetative state and now has some kind of stasis field over her on top of that. And Gambit's just sitting here talking to her. And it's obvious he misses her. He loves her. He's sitting there telling her, you know, I wish I was your Prince Charming right now. I wish I'd been able to save you already, but I've been trying and I'm failing. I can't even though I can't listen here, I can't even sit here and talk to you. I'd still rather talk to you like this than anyone else. And then he says, I'm going to London for Betsy, and then this is it. Nothing else is going to stop me from getting you out of there. Well, when he arrives in England, he's not met with such a warm reception. He's got a big crowd out there that's basically protesting the fact that Captain Britian is now a Krakoan citizen rather than a British citizen. He's got a bunch of people yelling at him to go back through the gate, and he's saying as he walks up, I heard y'all don't like Betsy, huh? And then somebody chucks a bottle at him. He catches it midair and it's like, well, you really not gonna like me. He starts charging it, and everybody starts freaking out and running away from him. Inside, you have Rictor and Jubilee walking, and Rictor is basically giving Jubilee a civics lesson, which is funny because she spent some time in Ireland with Generation X. So she should be somewhat familiar with some of that stuff, but who knows, maybe that was one of the other timelines of Moira at this point. I don't know. We also find out, though, that Rictor is feeling a lot better about his powers, and a lot of that is because he's been talking to Apocalypse. He makes the point that, hey, by no means do I trust the guy, but he listens, and that's really important. Well, right about when they get to that part of the conversation, there's a huge explosion outside where Gambit's dealing with the rioting crowd. Well, out there you got Gambit ripping signs up, charging them and detonating them, and when everyone shows up, Jubilee and Richter, to kind of find out what's going on, he just says, they threw a bottle at me, and they're like, okay, fair enough. Jubilee starts blasting folks, Richter starts tearing up ground around him. And of course, we all know this is a big setup. People start calling out that they're attacking us, and it's an act of Krakoan terrorism. They're dangerous, and they're kind of backing off a little bit. But Gambit's ready to go. They say, hey, they're dangerous. He's like, yeah, we are. And then at that point, Captain Britain struts out and says, no, we're not. Not to the people of Britain. Anyway, she comes strolling out with Pete Wisdom and basically shoos away some of the media, saying that, they don't have any comments for you right now. And then it gets a little bit weird because she says that, they met with the Queen and everything's fine. We are, not she is, we are accountable to the Queen, all of us. Her Majesty had a bit of paperwork and needed to know the name of who would be working with me. I told her we're called Excalibur, and that's just really not good writing. But from there we jump back to Krakoa, where they further discussion on what happened. And one of the concerns that the Queen brought up was the citizenship of Captain Britain. So she has to go and talk to the Coven about that. I assuming she means Coven Aqaba. Gambit once again chimes in with his, look, the only thing I'm concerned about is Rogue. And Apocalypse turns and says, yeah, I agree with Gambit. And Gambit's taken back a little bit. He's like, you are? He's like, look, I called you both here. I need your assistance. For that, she must be freed. And in order for me to free her, I need some items secreted deep within the ground. I'm gonna need 2 people. I'm gonna need a Master of Earth and a Master Thief. And I like this for a couple reasons. The biggest one, though, is that Apocalypse is still Apocalypse. The reason he went and got Rictor wasn't to be nice. The reason he went and got Rictor is because he needed him for this mission. There's a couple of pages regarding Jamie Braddock and his return, and it's really boring. Jubilee ends up punching him out at the end. But let's just go with Gambit and Richter on their mission, because that's a heck of a lot more interesting. And we find out here what it is Richter and Gambit have been sent after by Apocalypse, and it's apparently some crystals. Some of the same crystals he was checking out in issue 3 and tossing away, saying that they weren't any good. Well, these ones apparently are made from the bones of long dead mutants. And for whatever reason, these are going to be much more powerful in order to operate certain gates back and forth to Otherworld, I believe. And Gambit brings up a good point here that they haven't been given the whole story, because it doesn't make sense to take a thief underground with you unless somebody already owns these things. Well, right around when he figures that out, they're suddenly surrounded by druids. They immediately try to run, but they realize real quick they're dealing with individuals that they're the masters of the underground. So Rictor, rather than playing, he just makes a path straight through down to this room that contains tons and tons of these crystals, and Gambit is immediately left thinking, man, I wish I had some bigger pockets. Well, as they get there, Rictor starts talking, saying, hey, I feel like stealing from witches is a bad idea, as it stands, but if you feel comfortable with that, go on, your soul, go nuts. And Gambit just throws his hands out. He's like, yeah, give them here. He immediately pockets ones, and then suddenly you get a bunch of eyeballs in the background, and suddenly the ceiling starts just collapsing down on him. Rictor tries to stop it, but it's not him that ends up stopping it. Well, these druids come out. They're immediately kind of embracing Rictor, saying, hey, you earth wielder, child of Loam, not human, and they says, hey, you can do this naturally, right? And they end up coming out and basically saying, hey, you know what? You're a druid. Well, they start telling him, look, your gifts, they're not strange, but you got to come down here. You got to live alongside of us. Don't live on top of the world. Live within the world. And Gambit's like, hey, Rick, this ain't what we came for. And they say, yeah, you know what? Your friend's right. Here's all the things you need. And they start handing him the crystals that they came looking for. And they're like, yeah, those other ones that were over there, those are distractions. We keep them there to keep thieves out. They've long been depleted of any energy, and we just use them as a decoy for thieves. And then the ground just falls away underneath Gambit, and he falls down into this pit. Rictor tries to do what he can to save him, but it's too late, and Gambit just falls deep down into this pit. After that, we jump to a meeting between Captain Britian, Betsy Braddock, and this Coven of Aqaba, which is the same Coven of Aqaba as apparent by Mariana Stern, but it calls into question, why are they called the Coven of Aqaba? Anyways, all that is cute and doesn't matter. What really happens here is Captain Britian, Betsy Braddock, and this Coven get into an argument eventually. They goad her into getting mad. And what the Coven is ultimately doing here is they're trying to goad her, and they're trying to prove that she's not worthy of being Captain Britian. They throw the fact that her brother was the humility of a knight. He had the humility of a knight. He chose between the amulet and the sword. She had the amulet foisted upon her by her brother in a time of crisis. And she didn't make the choice. They don't believe her to be the true Captain Britian. She's just a dangerous pretender. And at that point, Betsy goes off. She starts chewing them out, saying, next time you're obsessing over me, save me a trip and just think your hateful thoughts. I'll be sitting there in paradise where I live. I serve the queen, and in a time of crisis in the other world, she trusts my judgment over her own. And he comes right back with, which is unwise, as we are proving to her now. And what we find out is that this whole meeting is basically a distraction, just to show her that her inexperience is going to be an issue. They bring up dragons and how there's a reason that there aren't a lot of dragons in Otherworld. They're a convenient war machine, but they're dangerous. And the reason they are so dangerous is because the Otherworld is fragile and it can be unmade by dragon fire. And this fire seems to have caught. Well, I guess when Shogoo was there opening up, blazing on Morgan Le Fey soldiers, well, now you got this. They've somehow managed to melt a hole in the very fabric of Otherworld. And this is just a veil, basically, that protects our world from Otherworld. And now you have these creatures, these monsters that are coming through to our side. Back at the lighthouse where Apocalypse is still with Rogue, he looks up, sees this giant portal open, and says, the war has reached our shores, Rogue. This is merely an opening salvo meant to test the captain's hands. But we know better. We've been working since the beginning, haven't we? And Rogue's eyes open up. What do y'all think is going on with Rogue here? Are we going to get a reimagining? Are we going to get her backstory kind of redone? Or is she going to have prior ties to Apocalypse? Tell me what y'all think down in the comments below. Gambit continues to be treated like a punk in this book, and now he's down in a hole somewhere. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. But you have a very interesting crescendo coming up with all these monsters coming through. Hopefully these things go after the lighthouse there, because I want to see Apocalypse wielding that hammer we saw back in like issue 2, I believe, and see him cracking some of these skulls and blasting some of these things out of the air. I think I said this in the last one for Excalibur. I can excuse some of the writing in this. It's pretty bad, but overall I'm gonna keep reading it because it's just this otherworldly, I don't know, I enjoy it. The writing's not good, but the overall storyline is good. I'll admit that I'm really not interested in the Betsy Braddock storyline at this point at all. I'm more interested in what's going on with Apocalypse, Gambit, and Rogue. But that's it for now, guys. Make sure you take the time to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below. What do you think's going on with Rogue here? What is happening? And finally, if the video wasn't too horrible, leave it a like. It helps get more gets more eyes to the channel, basically. Still looking to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so thank you to everyone who's taken the time to hit the subscribe button and comes back and watches these videos, guys. I really appreciate you guys that I see down in the comments on a regular basis, helping just drive conversation and just help this channel really grow and start building a little community here within comic books. I appreciate it, guys. I hope y'all have a great Christmas, great holiday. Merry Christmas. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.